Plus all-wheel drive from around $299 per month. Visit your local Cadillac dealer.
Tonight, breaking developments on several fronts as the survivors of the deadly school shooting board buses for their state capital, Washington next. The White House is pressed late today. What will the president do on mental health and on guns? Should there be an age limit to buy an AR-15? And the White House is then asked, does the president have his own ideas? Late today, President Trump then revealing new action. Also tonight, the new images from inside the school, frozen in time. President Trump tonight unleashing on Twitter on Russia, saying today that he's been much tougher on Russia than President Obama. Tonight, the White House is asked, how so? And if so, why are the sanctions against Russia passed by both Republicans and Democrats on hold? Our team on Syria tonight, the horror, new airstrikes, families, young children seen screaming, more than 200 killed. The major winter storm in this country turning deadly. The confirmed tornado in Texas. Millions bracing for snow, freezing rain, floods from Dallas up through Chicago and Detroit. And the mystery at sea tonight. The newlyweds, the wife who disappeared, the husband's story. And tonight, the major development.
This is ABC World News Tonight with David Muir.
Good evening, and it's great to have you with us here on a Tuesday night. And this evening, as those school children board those buses demanding answers, the questions at the White House late today, asking what the president plans to do after the mass shootings, the most recent, of course, in Parkland, Florida. The president then late today taking action on guns, what he's now done. And the new images coming in tonight from our ABC station WPLG, the pictures from inside the school, what they reveal. Tonight, the White House is asked about AR-15s. Should there be age limits for buyers? The shooter was 18 when he bought his legally. ABC's Mary Bruce leading us off.
As survivors of the Florida school shooting tonight travel by bus to the state capitol to demand action, vowing Washington is next, at the White House, they're already feeling the pressure. Tonight, answering questions about what President Trump is going to do about the mass shootings in America. 17 dead in Florida, 58 in Las Vegas, 26 dead in Sutherland Springs, Texas. Late today, the White House was pressed repeatedly. Does the president have any ideas? John Roberts from Fox News.
Sarah, you mentioned a deranged individual took the lives of 17 people at Parkland. That's after a deranged individual took dozens of lives in Las Vegas, in the wake of which the president offered some support for the idea of banning bump stocks, which then seemed to have fallen by the wayside. Does the president have any ideas at all on how to address this, or is he starting from scratch?
I can tell you that the president supports not having the use of bump stocks, and that we expect further action on that in the coming days. But I can tell you that the president doesn't support the use of those accessories.
That reporter pressing again.
On the broader problem of deranged individuals getting a hold of weapons and killing people indiscriminately, does he have any ideas on how to deal with this?
Well, look, we're having, again, that's part of a lot of the conversations that we're going to have over the next
suggest he start from scratch here.
Mental illness.
If he has to listen to a bunch of people,
No,
and he
he's-
doesn't have any ideas of his own, that would suggest that he doesn't have any ideas.
It's not what I said. You're taking my words out of context.
Could you explain?
Well, I was trying to before you interrupted me. But the president is very focused on mental illness. Unfortunately, we can't just flip a switch, but there is a process.
Tonight, the White House says the president does want to make background checks more efficient. But then they were asked about assault weapons. In Florida, Nicholas Cruz was able to legally buy an AR-15 when he was just 18 years old. To buy a handgun in Florida, you have to be 21.
Does the president believe there should be an age limit for those who buy an AR-15? As you know, the shooter in Florida was a teenager when he first bought an AR-15.
I know there are currently laws in place in certain states that restrict that in terms of whether or not we make that federal policy. That hasn't yet been determined. But that's something
Is that something that
I think that's certainly something that's on the table for us to discuss and that we expect to come up over the next couple of weeks.
And then, moments after the briefing, the president revealed he is taking action on those bump stocks used in Las Vegas, directing the attorney general to come up with regulations to ban those devices.
Just a few moments ago, I signed a memorandum directing the attorney general to propose regulations to ban all devices that turn legal weapons into machine guns.
But tonight, those survivors in Florida know bump stocks weren't used in their school. Instead, a student and an AR-15 and red flags missed, which is why they want the president to do more.
Yeah, but we don't think that people should be able to possess a semi-automatic, which can be a weapon of mass destruction.
This is the way that we are all driving our grief. We're making something negative into positive energy and positive change for the future.
Adrienne Bankert, who was on that bus. Mary Bruce with us live tonight from Washington. And Mary, we know the president is preparing to meet with students, parents, teachers from communities affected by mass shootings tomorrow. And as you reported there, he's directed his attorney general to take action on bump stocks. But you're also learning that the president, the White House, may not be able to ban these devices on their own?
David, lawmakers and experts seem to agree if the president wants to ban these bump stocks, he's likely going to need Congress to do it. Tonight, the top Democrat leading the charge on the Hill, Dianne Feinstein, has a message for the president. In a statement, she says, if you want these devices off the street, call congressional Republicans and tell them to stop blocking our bill. David.
Mary Bruce leading us off from the White House. Mary, thank you. Of course, those bump stocks were not used in Florida, but an AR-15 was, and now there is that debate as well. Should an 18-year-old be able to walk in and buy one like the alleged shooter did legally? And tonight, a look inside those classrooms. Images obtained by our station WPLG, the ABC affiliate in Miami. After the deadly shootings, these images are difficult and a reminder of the students and teachers who had to dive under desks and into closets to survive. And of course, 17 did not. Here's ABC's Victor Akendo.
Tonight, we're seeing haunting images from inside empty freshman classrooms of Stoneman Douglas High School. The photos show a door's glass shattered, police believe smashed by the butt of Nicholas Cruz's rifle, as students scramble to hide under desks. Textbooks left open, earphones abandoned on a desk, the classroom here seen from the hallway. And we're now learning more about the suspected shooter through his education plan first obtained by ABC affiliate WPLG. It shows Cruz was attending a school for emotionally and behaviorally disabled students in 2015. Administrators noting while he was making progress at the alternative school, he was reported to be distracted by inappropriate conversations of his peers if the topic is about guns, people being killed, or the armed forces. Donnie Provenzano is a former special education specialist in Broward County with more than 40 years of experience.
I'm not the expert on mass killers, but this raises so many red flags.
Today, 4 more students were laid to rest, including Peter Wang, who helped others escape to safety that day. One of 3 junior ROTC cadets who died. The Army awarding them all medals of heroism. Wang, who dreamed of going to West Point, today honored with posthumous admission to the school.
Another extraordinarily difficult day in that community. Victor, back with us in front of that school. We know the memorial on campus is growing by the day. And Victor, any word on when that school will be reopening, when they'll all come back together?
David, students and their families were notified of a special orientation here next Sunday where they'll be offering a variety of support services. And then the goal is to have classes resume next Tuesday. David?
All right, Victor Akendo in Parkland, Florida for us again tonight. One more note this evening. What could have been another school attack was the plot foiled. A Maryland teenager this time arrested at school. Police say he had a gun in his backpack and a knife in his pocket. A school officer questioning 18-year-old Alwyn Chen after getting a tip that he was armed. This 9mm in his backpack. At home, police found several more weapons, including an AR-15 style rifle, plus a list of grievances against fellow students. President Trump, meanwhile, on Twitter today and taking aim on Russia, saying he's been much tougher on Russia than President Obama before him. The White House was then asked, why have the sanctions passed by both Democrats and Republicans not been fully imposed? ABC's chief White House correspondent Jonathan Karl on that tonight.
Answering questions for the first time since Robert Mueller's sweeping indictment of 13 Russians for meddling in the election, the White House press secretary today was pressed on why the president hasn't forcefully condemned Russia's actions.
The president hasn't said that Russia didn't meddle. What he's saying is it didn't have an impact, and it certainly wasn't with help from the Trump campaign. It's very clear that Russia meddled in the election.
But the president himself has never been so definitive on the question of Russian meddling, raising doubts after the story first broke during the campaign.
But I notice anytime anything wrong happens, they like to say the Russians, she doesn't know if it's the Russians doing the hacking. Maybe there is no hacking.
After the election, he acknowledged the meddling, but with a caveat.
As far as hacking, I think it was Russia, but I think we also get hacked by other countries and other people.
and the president has never called for punishing Russia.
What is he specifically doing about the fact that Russia interfered with our election and has every intention, we are told, of doing it again? What is he doing about it?
Look, just last week, the Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen met with a number of relevant stakeholders. They're discussing this process. Everybody wants to blame this on the Trump administration. Let's not forget that this happened under the Obama administration.
This happened over a year ago. What's he done about it?
We have spent a lot of time working on cybersecurity, focusing on protecting the fairness on our elections.
Most recently, the president has criticized Barack Obama for not responding to the meddling. As for Putin, he has suggested the Russian leader is sincere in his denials.
I believe that he feels that he and Russia did not meddle in the election. As to whether I believe it or not, I'm with our agencies, especially as currently constituted with their leadership.
He hasn't even called out Putin. He criticized Obama. He criticized the FBI. He didn't even criticize Vladimir Putin in the wake of this indictment.
He has been tougher on Russia in the first year than Obama was in 8 years combined.
Congress slapped sanctions on Russia last summer, but the president has yet to fully implement them.
Why hasn't the president implemented the sanctions which Congress passed last year?
Look, frankly, that's not completely accurate. There's a process that has to take place, and we're going through that process.
So let's get to John Karl with us live tonight from the White House as well. And John, those sanctions were passed back in July with overwhelming bipartisan support. About 7 months later now, the White House still has not fully implemented them?
The secretaries of state and treasury have said that the sanctions are coming, and you heard the press secretary say that they've begun that process. But David, the bottom line is that those sanctions have still not been fully implemented.
And John, in the meantime, another issue that came up late today, the White House also pressed on the newly announced restrictions on West Wing officials working with what's called a temporary security clearance. Their access to classified information, they say, will now be limited. And Sarah Sanders was asked what that will mean for Jared Kushner, who is still unable to obtain a full clearance. Take a listen.
Does he not need classified information to do his job?
I can't answer whether someone has security clearance or not, as we've addressed many times before, but I can tell you that nothing that has taken place will affect the valuable work that Jared is doing.
And John, you were in the room when Sanders was asked whether the president will consider granting his son-in-law a full security clearance himself.
She said that she has not directly asked the president that question, but we heard from her and also today from the Chief of Staff, John Kelly, both saying that regardless of what happens, Jared Kushner will continue to be able to do his job here at the White House.
All right, John Karl at the White House tonight. John, thank you. And amid all of this, there was also a new guilty plea in the Russia investigation today. Tonight, the list of guilty pleas so far: first, former National Security Advisor Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, then George Papadopoulos. On Friday, American Richard Pinedo we learned of, and today now a Dutch lawyer who is now linked to a former Trump campaign aide. So who is this man who has now pleaded guilty to lying to the FBI? Here's ABC's Chief Justice correspondent Pierre Thomas.
The special counsel's latest target walking into the FBI's D.C. field office. And tonight, London-based attorney Alex van der Zwaan is accused of lying to investigators.
Mr. van der Zwaan, why did you feel the need to lie to the special counsel, sir?
Van der Zwaan, a Dutch national who married the daughter of a Russian oligarch in a lavish wedding that lit up social media. He pleaded guilty to making false statements about contacts with Rick Gates, former Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort's deputy. Van der Zwaan admitted to destroying emails connected to his role in a PR war that Manafort and Gates were allegedly involved in to support Ukrainian politicians backed by Russia, years before they were involved in the Trump presidential campaign. According to prosecutors, Van der Zwaan, who worked closely with Gates and Manafort, was also communicating with a mysterious individual described as Person A in today's charges. The latest sign of pressure Robert Mueller is putting on Manafort and Gates, already indicted in the special counsel's probe.
Pierre Thomas with us live tonight outside the court, and there are indications that now Rick Gates, who this newest man to plead guilty worked with, could be negotiating a possible plea deal himself.
David, our sources say talks have been underway, but so far are inconclusive. If Gates does agree to a deal, that means a lot more pressure on Manafort, David.
Pierre, thank you. Overseas tonight into Syria now, pro-Assad forces launching a fierce air assault on a neighborhood there. More than 200 people killed, a quarter of them children. Video tonight showing the desperate rush to save babies, to rescue children from homes after the barrel bombs fell. Here's ABC senior foreign correspondent Ian Pannell, who's been to Syria many times for us.